I would like to talk now about breathing, which is obviously critical to the performance on any wind instrument. And my approach to breathing is a little bit controversial, so you may not agree with me, but I find that it works very, very well, and that I've had very good success with all of my students when I switch them over to this way of playing. And the way I refer to my philosophy toward breathing and using the body is called active breathing. Now, most of you have probably heard somewhere along the way either your flute teacher or your band director talk about the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is supposedly refers to this entire region of the body here and helps you breathe. Well, in reality, the diaphragm is just a thin membrane somewhere under the lungs, and it doesn't actually take in any oxygen or expel any air. There's nothing that the diaphragm itself does that's involved in breathing, but the visualization of the diaphragm was used as a tool to get musicians to think about how they use their lungs, and I think really was used as a way of talking about the abdominal muscles. So I just talk about the abdominal muscles, or the abs, as I say to my students, because the other thing about the diaphragm is that the diaphragm is not a muscle that we have any control over, so we can't actually really move our diaphragm at all. So I'm going to talk about abs. Now, when I was a young student, I had heard a lot about the idea of the diaphragm when you breathe and how you move it. And I think a lot of musicians are taught that the diaphragm, when you take a breath in, that the diaphragm pushes out, so that it's like your abdominal muscles pushing out. And the theory behind this was that somehow by pushing out, you're expanding and making more room for air. And that while you play, you should continue to push out with this diaphragm. Well, I played that way for years, and then when I was in France studying with Alain Marion, he started telling me, no, you have to hold everything in, And at first I thought, well, that's crazy, because I've always been taught the opposite. But I realized that everything works better when you hold the muscles in. When you take your breath, you hold the diaphragm or the abdominal muscles in. And this is the reason why. It's the lungs that are taking in air, and it's the lungs that need to expand to take in more air. And so yes, we need to support all of this, and that's another word you hear a lot, support. But I believe that support does not come from pushing out. Support actually comes from holding in the abdominal muscles, because the lungs, when they fill with air, are going to expand this way forward, this way to the side, and out the back. And it's going to be like a 3-dimension, like you're inside an inner tube, and you're filling up the inner tube all around. The lungs don't, in my opinion, I don't believe they fill up by going down and pushing the abdominal muscles out. Do an experiment. Stand up and push your abdominal muscles out. What happens to your body when you do that? You sink. You actually shrink when you push those muscles out. And when that happens to me, I feel a lack of energy. I feel like I'm sinking, I'm collapsing, like I don't have good control over my body. I'm not in an active position. When I hold my abdominal muscles in, I feel much more like I'm in a position of energy, where I'm energized, I'm ready to move or to pounce. I have control over my body, and actually I'm more relaxed. Even though I'm giving some tension to my body here, it allows me to be more relaxed everywhere else. Whereas when I'm pushing out, I just feel everything sort of collapse. So I have my students, and when I play, I hold these muscles in when I take a breath. While I'm actually breathing, I hold these in. While I'm playing and blowing out, I'm also holding them in. In fact, I hold these muscles in all the time. There's never a time when I'm playing my flute when I'm pushing outward. And instead, I like to expand all of this like I'm a great big opera singer taking the stage and filling up in 3-dimension like this. And while I'm playing, support where you hold your abdominal muscles in also allows you to relax your vibrato so that you can get a shimmering, faster spinning vibrato, because if you're pushing down, everything sinks. And it allows me to manage the air better so that I'm not blowing too much air out, more air than I need. And it allows me to play phrases which require a long line without a breath. So give it a try and let me know what you think, because I imagine that I will get some people who say that I'm totally wrong and they don't agree with me at all. So let me know what you think.